The smell hit me first, not the rich, comforting aroma of coffee, but something sharp and metallic, the scent of old pennies and betrayal. It coiled in my stomach. A cold, familiar serpent. My husband, Leo, held the delicate porcelain cup out to me, his smile just a little too bright, a little too forced. It was the same smile he'd worn 3 months ago when the bad shrimp at a restaurant he'd chosen had landed me in the ER for 2 days, causing me to miss the final presentation for a career-making project. "I made this one especially for you, honey," he said, his voice smooth as silk. A new single-origin bean Isabel picked up. My name is Clara, and at 29, I sat trapped at the gleaming mahogany dining table of my sister-in-law, Isabel. This was our monthly family brunch, a ritual that had become less about connection and more about survival. For the past year, my life had been a series of unfortunate events, a string of accidents and sudden illnesses that always seemed to strike at the most inopportune moments. And always, Leo and Isabel were nearby. Their faces, masks of perfect, concerned sympathy. "How thoughtful," I replied, my voice a carefully constructed imitation of gratitude. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird beating against a cage. Across from me, Isabel watched, her own cup of coffee untouched, her fingers idly tracing the rim. The way her eyes darted between me and Leo was all the confirmation I needed. She was waiting for the curtain to rise on her next little drama. "Leo's been practicing his barista skills," Isabel said, a smirk playing on her lips. "He's determined to make your coffee perfect." The emphasis she put on your was a poisoned dart. They had been spending so much time together lately, whispering in corners, their phones quickly hidden whenever I entered a room. They called it anniversary planning, but it felt more like plotting. I remembered the tea she had served me last month, right here in this house. It had a strange, bitter aftertaste. Hours later, I was doubled over with cramps so violent I could barely breathe. The doctors had been baffled. A sudden, severe gastrointestinal virus, they'd concluded. Unable to explain the odd neurological symptoms that accompanied it, Isabel had been so apologetic, so worried. Today, I would not be a victim. I had learned. The constant state of anxiety had sharpened my senses, turning suspicion into a shield. I lifted the cup, the metallic tang growing stronger, burning my nostrils. I pretended to bring it to my lips, my eyes fixed on them over the rim. I saw it a flicker of shared anticipation, a glance that lasted only a fraction of a second, but contained a novel's worth of conspiracy. That was it. That was my cue. With a manufactured gasp, I jolted in my seat, checking my phone. "Oh, my goodness, I am so sorry. My boss just texted with an emergency. Isabel, would you mind terribly if I used your study for a quick call?" Before she could answer, I was on my feet. As I moved past her chair, my hand, the one holding the cup, accidentally lost its balance. It was a chaotic, clumsy motion. I stumbled forward, my body lurching towards hers. In the split second of confusion, as my other hand shot out to steady myself on the table, I performed the sleight of hand I had been rehearsing in my mind for weeks. The cups clicked softly. Mine was now in front of her. Hers was now in my hand. It almost went wrong. The cups wobbled precariously, hot liquid sloshing over the sides. Isabel let out a sharp cry and glared at me. For a heartbeat, I thought she knew. My blood ran cold. The fear, a physical taste of ice in my mouth. "I am so sorry," I exclaimed, straightening up and forcing a laugh that sounded brittle to my own ears. "I'm Klutz today. I didn't sleep well." Isabel's glare softened into its usual condescension. She waved a dismissive hand, dabbing a tiny coffee splash on the tablecloth with her napkin. "It's fine, Clara. Just try not to destroy my antique desk in the study." Of course, I murmured, my heart still pounding a frantic rhythm. I hurried from the room, clutching her coffee cup like a lifeline. I didn't go to the study desk. I stopped just inside the doorway, partially hidden by the frame. My phone held low in my hand. The video camera was already running. Now, all I had to do was wait. And watch. Through the sliver of space in the doorway, I watched the scene unfold. I saw Isabel, my sister-in-law, the woman who had pretended to welcome me into her family, lift the coffee cup, my coffee cup to her lips. A wave of nausea, real and potent, washed over me. A dark part of my mind, a whisper of guilt, screamed at me to run out, to knock the cup from her hand. Was I becoming a monster to catch one? But then I thought of the endless nights spent in pain, the missed opportunities, the career setbacks, the look of pity in my colleagues' eyes. I thought of Leo's hollow reassurances, his constant gaslighting that made me question my own sanity. You're just stressed, honey. Maybe you have a weak stomach. No, this was not monstrosity. This was self-preservation. I needed the truth, raw and undeniable. I gripped the doorframe, my knuckles white, as she took a long, slow sip. Leo was on his phone, pretending to be engrossed in an email, but his posture was rigid with anticipation. He was watching, too. It didn't take long. A slight tremor started in Isabel's hand. She set the cup down with a clatter, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet room. Her face, usually a mask of smug composure, was suddenly pale, a waxy, unhealthy sheen spreading across her skin. Leo, she said, her voice thin and shaky. Something feels wrong. Leo looked up from his phone. His expression shifted from feigned indifference to confusion, then to pure, unadulterated horror as his eyes darted from her face to the cup she had just drunk from. He knew. He realized the mistake instantly. He shot up from his chair, knocking it over with a loud crash. Isabel, what's happening? What's wrong? Her hands were trembling violently now, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I feel... She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white, her eyes wide with a dawning, terrifying realization, locked onto her brother. Leo, she choked out, her voice a strangled whisper. What did you put in that coffee? That was my cue. I stepped out from the shadows of the study, my phone held steady in my hand. The small red recording icon, a beacon of truth in the dim light. The sight of me sent a fresh wave of panic across Leo's face. He looked from me to his sister, who was now slumping in her chair, and the pieces of his shattered plan seemed to click into place in his mind. Clara, he stammered, his face ashen. That wasn't meant for her. In the chilling silence of the dining room, his whispered words were a confession, loud as a gunshot. Isabel's eyes widened, first with confusion, then with a horrified understanding that twisted her features into a mask of pure terror. An ambulance, she gasped, her body sliding from the chair to the floor in a heap. Call an ambulance. Please. I can't. My fingers were already moving, dialing 911. My hands were shaking, a fine tremor born of adrenaline and a year's worth of suppressed fear. But my voice was unnaturally calm when the dispatcher answered. Yes. I need an ambulance at 125 Cherry Blossom Lane. My sister-in-law is having a severe reaction to something she drank. As I spoke, Leo lunged. It was a desperate, clumsy movement. He wasn't trying to hurt me, but to silence me, his hand reaching for the phone that held his entire world captive. Instinct took over. I recoiled, yanking the phone to my chest and twisting away from him. Don't you touch me, I screamed, the words tearing from my throat, raw and sharp. On the other end of the line, the dispatcher's calm voice was suddenly urgent. "Ma'am, is someone with you? Are you safe?" "Yes, I'm safe," I said, my eyes locked on my husband, who had frozen, his hand hovering in midair. "My husband is here. He's just panicked." Isabel was on the floor now, her body convulsing in violent tremors. The sight was horrific, and a part of me, the part that still remembered the woman who had smiled at my wedding, felt a pang of guilty pity. But I stamped it down. This was a trap of her own making. "Shut up," Leo Isabel shrieked through chattering teeth, her anger momentarily eclipsing the agony. "This is all your fault. You said it would just be enough. Just enough to make her too sick for the board meeting next week. You promised it wouldn't be traceable." My blood ran cold. The board meeting. The one where I was set to present the final proposal for the Henderson account. The biggest client our firm had ever courted. The same account I knew Isabel had been desperately trying to land for her rival company for months. It all clicked into place. Every piece of the puzzle falling into its ugly, horrifying position. "The tea," I said, my voice barely a whisper, but every word was captured by the phone's microphone. "The tea last month that made me miss the Johnson contract presentation. And the breakfast, 2 months ago, that put me in the hospital for 3 days. Those weren't accidents, were they?" Isabel's face contorted as another wave of spasms racked her body. She clutched her stomach, doubling over. He said, "Leo said we just needed to discredit you." She gasped, her words slurring. "Make the clients think you were unreliable, fragile." The wail of sirens grew louder, a sound of impending justice. Leo, trapped between his convulsing sister and his recording wife, looked like a cornered animal. He backed away, his hands raised in a useless gesture of surrender. "Isabel, stop talking. You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying," she spat back, venom lacing her words. "We've been planning this for months. Ever since you started outperforming me at every turn, you were supposed to make sure she drank it today." "You idiot." The front door burst open, and 2 paramedics rushed in, their presence shattering the toxic domestic scene. I quickly stepped aside, ending the recording and immediately uploading the file to a secure cloud server before sending a copy to my lawyer. It was done. The truth was free. As they expertly loaded a shaking, sobbing Isabel onto a stretcher, Leo stood paralyzed, a statue of ruin, watching his life burn down around him. I turned to one of the paramedics, my voice firm and clear. "I'll ride with her to the hospital. I need to make sure she gets the proper treatment." My eyes met Leo's. The terror in his gaze was profound. He saw now that he hadn't just been dealing with a stressed, sickly wife. He had been dealing with a survivor. "After all," I added, my voice dropping to a low, chilling whisper meant only for him, "I'm sure the doctors will be very interested to know exactly what was in that coffee." The emergency room at Nashville General Hospital was an island of controlled chaos. I sat in the plastic chair of the waiting room, a strange calm settling over me. The storm had broken, and I had survived. On my phone, I replayed the video, listening to Isabel's panicked confession and Leo's damning admission. The tremors in her voice, the terror in her eyes, it was all there. It was my proof. A nurse called out the family name, and I stood, noting that Leo was nowhere to be seen. He'd mumbled something about finding parking nearly half an hour ago and had vanished. "I'm her sister-in-law," I said, following the nurse into the sterile maze of the ER. "She's stabilized, but the toxicology screen is showing some concerning results." The nurse told me, "Herr Expression Grimm. We found several compounds in her system that are definitely not supposed to be there. The doctor wants to speak with you." Dr. Evans, a sharp, no-nonsense woman with tired eyes, met me outside Isabel's room. "Mrs. Bennett," she began, Can you tell me anything about what your sister-in-law might have ingested before she fell ill? I took a deep breath. Doctor, I think it's better if you just listen to this. I held out my phone and played the video from the brunch. I watched her professional demeanor shift to one of serious alarm. This is a criminal matter, she said, her voice low. The primary substance we've identified is a pharmaceutical research compound. It is highly controlled and can be extremely dangerous. This was a deliberate contamination. Just then, Leo appeared at the end of the hall, looking disheveled and pale. He saw me with the doctor and his face crumpled. Clara, he started, taking a step toward me. Please, let me just explain. Stay right where you are. Doctor, Evans commanded, her voice sharp as she pressed the security button on the wall. Security to the ER. Room 412. This is all a misunderstanding, Leo pleaded, raising his hands. Isabel was confused. She didn't know what she was saying. Was she confused when you sent these texts? I asked. My voice cold as ice. I held up my phone, displaying the screenshots I had taken weeks ago. I'd used a data recovery program on our shared family tablet and found a trove of deleted messages. The ones where you and she discussed making sure I was out of commission before the Henderson presentation, or this one, where she complains the last attempt wasn't effective enough. His face drained of all color. You went through my messages. I went looking for the truth you tried to hide from me. I shot back. I then turned to the doctor. Doctor, I have been hospitalized 3 times in the last 6 months, with symptoms the ER could never explain. I'd like my medical records compared with what you found in Isabel's system today. 2 security guards arrived, flanking a stunned Leo. He looked trapped, his world imploding in a sterile hospital corridor. Behind him, a woman with a detective's badge arrived, her gaze sweeping over the scene with practiced authority. I'm Detective Mendoza, she said. Doctor, Evans called me. Looks like I got here just in time. Over the next hour, I laid out the entirety of my nightmare for her. I showed her the video, the recovered text messages, and the detailed log I had been keeping for months, documenting every illness, every symptom, every suspicious circumstance. Finally, I took out the tiny audio recorder I had started carrying in my purse. I have audio recordings as well, I said. They were careful, but not careful enough. I played the most damning one. Isabel's voice. Clear as day, the Henderson account is worth millions. Leo, we can't let her waltz in and take it. And then, Leo's reply. The words that would haunt my dreams for years to come. Don't worry. I've got something stronger this time. She won't make it to the presentation. Detective Mendoza's expression hardened. She dispatched officers to secure our home and Leo's office. Inside the hospital room, Isabel was awake, watching us through the glass. The arrogant smirk she always wore replaced by a dawning dread. The call from the officer at Leo's office came less than an hour later. Detective, he said over the speakerphone, you need to see this. He sent over photos of several small, clinically labeled vials found in a locked drawer in Leo's desk. Alongside them was a notebook, filled with my name and dates, with detailed notes on dosages and my subsequent reactions. My knees felt weak. He was documenting it. I whispered in horror, like I was some kind of lab rat. Detective Mendoza walked into Isabel's room, me following close behind. So you increased the dosages because the earlier attempts weren't effective enough, the detective asked, her voice dangerously quiet. It wasn't like that, Isabel protested weakly. We just needed to make sure you rested. The Henderson client specifically requested me to lead their account. Didn't they? I asked. The final, ugliest piece of the puzzle locking into place. This was never just about making me miss one meeting. You needed me out of the picture for good. Isabel's face twisted in a snarl of pure envy. You ruined everything I spent years building that portfolio. And you just show up and charm everyone. Doctor. Evans entered, holding a tablet with the final toxicology report. She looked directly at Isabel. The concentration of the compound in the coffee you drank today was nearly 3 times higher than what we found in Mrs. Bennett's historical blood samples. Had she consumed that entire cup, the outcome could have been fatal. The room fell silent. Through the window, I saw them place Leo in handcuffs. His empty justifications silenced as an officer read him his rights. Isabel slumped back against her pillows. The fight gone, replaced by the hollow-eyed fear of a person who has lost everything. I turned my back on her. "Detective," I said, my voice finally steady. "I'm ready to make my formal statement now." The trial felt like an out-of-body experience. For 3 weeks, I sat in the cold, imposing courtroom and watched the life I had known be dissected under the harsh light of justice. The prosecution laid out the case with methodical precision. The evidence was a mountain they could not climb: the video of Isabel's confession, the chilling audio recordings of their plotting, the clinically detailed notes from Leo's experiment journal, and the vials of stolen pharmaceutical compounds. What was most striking was how small they both seemed now. Isabel, stripped of her designer clothes and smug confidence, looked fragile and lost in the defendant's chair. Leo spent the entire trial staring at the floor, unable to meet my gaze even for a second, especially when Dr. Root Evan testified. She presented a timeline that showed how they had methodically increased the dosages over months. A clear and undeniable escalation of intent to cause serious, escalating harm. The prosecutor's closing argument was devastating. This wasn't corporate sabotage or a misguided attempt to help a loved one slow down, she argued, her voice echoing in the silent room. This was a cold, calculated, and systematic campaign of terror waged by a husband and a sister against a woman they should have loved and protected. It was a conspiracy that, had it not been for the victim's own courage and foresight, would have ended in her death. When the jury delivered the verdict guilty on all counts, including attempted murder and conspiracy, I didn't feel the rush of triumph I had expected. There was only a profound, bone-deep relief. The battle was finally over. I watched as they were led away in handcuffs. 2 people who had let jealousy and greed curdle their souls into something unrecognizable. Their reputations, their careers, in their freedom, all of it sacrificed on the altar of their own bitterness. 1 year later, I stood at a podium, looking out at a sea of faces at the Nashville Business Leaders Conference. The irony was not lost on me. This was the pinnacle of professional recognition, the very kind of success Isabel had tried to poison me to prevent. The Henderson account had become the cornerstone of a new Almanistine, thriving division I now led at my firm. My career hadn't just recovered, it had soared. Success, I've learned, isn't just about talent or ambition. I began, my voice clear and confident. It's about integrity. It's about resilience. It's about recognizing that sometimes the greatest challenges we face don't come from our competitors, but from the places we least expect. I didn't need to share the details. My story had become a quiet legend in our circles. After the speech, a young woman, an aspiring marketing executive, approached me. "Your story," she said, her eyes shining. It taught me to meticulously document everything and, more importantly, to always trust my instincts. "Never let anyone make you doubt what you know to be true," I told her, feeling a sense of purpose that went far beyond any single business deal. Later that evening, an email from the Henderson client landed in my inbox. They were renewing their contract for another 3 years. With an increased budget, I smiled. I saw a small headline online that morning noting that Leo and Isabel had been denied their first appeal. I didn't click on it. Their chapter was closed. My revenge wasn't seeing them suffer. It was my success. My peace. My survival. It was moving forward, stronger and more certain of my own worth than ever before. The journey to uncover the truth was lonely and terrifying, but it taught me that our intuition is our most powerful guardian. If you've ever felt that something was wrong, that someone was trying to undermine you, even when the world told you that you were just being paranoid, this story is for you. Trust that voice inside. If this story resonated with you, please like and share it to empower someone else who might be in the dark. Subscribe for more stories of resilience. And share in the comments below how you learned to trust your own instincts. You are not alone.